This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their tap room in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. And this week we're talking with 14th Star Brewing. I'm Tim Dennis, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt.
Hey, Tim. So joining us today, we have Steve Gagner, one of the founders of 14th Star Brewing, and we're going to talk about the beer scene in Vermont, brewing with a mission, and probably a little bit about maple syrup. That might ooze in there a little bit sweetly. Steve, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Steve, Brian brought up the maple syrup. Is it really as popular? Is it one of those stereotypes that's true? Is it that popular in Vermont?
Well, it's, if Vermonters had anything close to a lifeblood, that'd kind of be it.
That's it. Okay. Well, that answers that one.
Well, it's not only, a major agricultural product and therefore, an economic engine in Vermont. It's, you just can't make it everywhere. And so it's culturally, it's fairly unique to, a small segment of the geographic United States. And, we take a lot of pride in the fact that we think we make the best syrup in the world.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
We're fans.
Yeah.
We're fans of it.
We get a little bit of it down here occasionally. I don't know if it's good quality stuff. I've heard that there are grades, and I never know what I'm really looking at because I've never gone down that road. But
you can definitely tell a difference in real deal Vermont maple syrup.
I think so.
I had a beef with Cracker Barrel over that, Brian, because they took the real maple syrup away and made this blend because they said the maple syrup there was a shortage and a price increase. And they went to this fake stuff that just was nowhere near as good.
Like the Aunt Jemima stuff, like
something along those lines. It was not real maple syrup anymore, which is a tragedy.
Well, I think
a shame.
What happens is places blend it with like corn syrup and
right.
or fake syrup, and they refer to it as maple syrup, which if it's not a crime, which I think it might be in some places, it should
right.
be, so.
Well, you should look into getting that some sort of an official designation there. That people do that with was it champagne and a few other
kinds
things,
of stuff,
all kinds of things where you cannot make it somewhere else. And
there
call
is.
It.
There's
there you go.
There's a designation for it to be listed as Vermont, for it to be listed as pure. There's certainly a lot of regulation to it.
Serious business.
Okay, all right,
good stuff. Well, Brian, as always, busy week for us. We got out and we did a thing or three. Recently, we went over to Scofflaw Brewing. Saw our friends in Nappy Roots. They're brewing a collaboration beer there that they're calling the Nappy Goat.
Yes,
which is a strawberry banana milkshake IPA that they're doing. Those guys have been super busy. With doing collaborations here lately. And we actually have one of their collaborations here we're going to get into a little bit later called Bluegrass Theme that they did with Dancing Gnome Brewery. And it's just called an American Ale. So we'll see what that's all about. Also we went on the Atlanta Beer Bus, the ATL Beer Bus.
Yes.
We did their Atlanta or ATL Road Sip is what they called it. And we went from Atlanta to Athens, Georgia, hit all the breweries over there in Athens, Creature Comfort, Southern Brewing Company, Terrapin, and we went to Academia Brew Pub there. Had a good time. A full day trip. It's been a while since I've did 12 hours of brewery tours.
Yeah, that was quite a thing.
yeah. So good time. But what else did you get into this week, Brian?
Yeah. So, of course, after, in along with that this weekend, I can't hardly talk today. We did some minis in the studios,
mini episodes, a couple of beer
for our Patreon folks. We went to the Nest for a low country boil / swamp, eat everything in the swamp type of situation where we had a platter where everything that lives in a swamp and a few things maybe that don't even they smoked all of them and we ate all of them. So that was a lot of fun. Had some of that dry county Lechuza
Mexican lager. Yep,
Mexican lager. That's such a great lager.
Yeah.
I enjoy
Steve,
that
I imagine
a great deal.
You guys don't get a lot of swamp based foods up there, do you?
No, we don't. No.
Yeah. It was a platter that had smoked frog legs, gator bites, crawfish, shrimp,
catfish,
and catfish on there. So the whole swamp is what they call it.
They cooked the entire thing.
I've had all of that, not in one sitting, however.
Yeah, this is the first time I've had them all together. So,
Yeah.
But it was good stuff. This place we went, the Nest barbecue place, barbecue and craft beer. A couple times a year, they actually smoke whole alligators. They just throw them on the smoker and do it up.
And that's quite a thing.
It is
quite the spectacle, and it's good. I enjoyed it. It's an unusual meat.
It is.
Yeah,
something neat to see.
Well, Tim, I think it's time for us to get into the beers of the week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, we've got a great selection of beers to get into this week. We're going all 14th star beers here. We've got quite a few to try. A few of them we are currently sipping the Oktoberfest. And that's something, Brian, I forgot to mention. I'm going to back it up a little bit. We didn't talk about our Twitter poll.
Oh, we forgot the Twitter poll.
And that is relevant at this time. So when I put the Twitter poll up, it was August. And my unofficial official rule is I won't touch any Oktoberfest beers until September. I won't play into the seasonal creep. So we're into September now. So we're drinking, Steve, we're drinking your Oktoberfest right now.
Well, you could do a whole lot worse, that's for sure.
That's right, absolutely. So we're getting into that. But the Twitter poll, like I said, it was in August. We were seeing all these Oktoberfest and pumpkin beers out. We asked people, are you drinking Oktoberfest or pumpkin beers? At the time, 36% of people said they are already drinking the Oktoberfest. 3% said they're drinking pumpkin beers. 12% said they're already into both. And 48% said no, it's too soon. So that seasonal creep will get you.
But half of the people knew better.
Right.
So the interesting part is we do have to educate some of our consumers because our Oktoberfest, just the way the releases happened, we released it last week, much to the chagrin of most of us, just the way the tank space worked out. But and so we get a lot of comments sometimes that it doesn't feel right to be drinking Oktoberfest in September, and you almost have to, stop the eye roll. And it's like, all right, guys. So when you say Oktoberfest, it actually happens in September. But I'll tell you the thing that kills me is the year-round pumpkin beers, or the pumpkin beers that are released in March and April. And it's like, come on, Now, if you're using harvested pumpkins, you harvest them in October, November, and then you brew them, and then they're ready in February, March. Sure, have at it. They can be great, cold weather beers. But when you're starting your season there with canned pumpkin, sorry, I can't mess with that.
A great summer beer. Get your pumpkin beers. I kind of got burnt out on pumpkin beers. And Brian, I think you're kind of in the same spot, right?
Yes.
And we've told this story before, Steve, but years ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago, we did an all pumpkin bottle share. And at the time, what brewery was it, Brian, that does all of the pumpkin beers? It was of the brews that sold.
It's in Seattle. Elysian. Yeah.
So we probably had 20 or 25 different variations of pumpkin beers, barrel aged, chocolate pumpkin,
Dark of the Moon, all that stuff. Yeah.
And we did that share and drank all of those. And Steve, I think that is the last time I've had any desire to have a pumpkin beer. I just haven't been able to go back that way.
It's like any time that you've gone out and had a little too much tequila, you never want to go back to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been there too. Absolutely. But back to our beers of the week, just making a mess out of things this week. But we're also going to get into a coffee IPA. Brian, I know you're looking forward to it. We're going to get into their B72 Northeast IPA, and we're going to get into a maple breakfast stout. I think we got to do that.
Yes.
So we also have a few others that if we get time, we'll get into those as well. And Brian, I'm going to let you do a speedy delivery here real quick on a news story.
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
Really quick in the news, Founders Brewing Company has been owning the news for the past couple of weeks. The latest is that they sold the majority of their ownership to Mahu San Miguel. That means when the deal is finalized in January, Mahu San Miguel will own 90% of Founders, and the original Founders will own 10% between the two of them. So, they're going to continue to run the day-to-day operations. The interesting thing is this comes right on the heels of them announcing that this year's release of Canadian Breakfast Stout will be the last release of CBS for the foreseeable future. Jeremy Kosmicki says he doesn't ever plan to brew it again. I have to wonder if the two items are related.
Crazy stuff, Brian. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break. But we will be back very soon to talk more with 14th Star Brewing.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Now, back to the Beer Guys radio show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys radio show. If you missed an episode, don't worry. All episodes are available as a podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and never miss a show. Now let's get back to 14 Star Brewing, and we're going to be talking again with Steve Gagner.
Steve, we have heard that your brewery has a very interesting origin story. Can you kind of tell us the background of 14th Star?
Sure. So myself and the other founder, Matt, when we came back from Iraq in 2006, we expected to be stationed in a certain area, and he was, and the Army actually, so we bought a house, my wife and I, and our newborn, who was born while I was deployed. We bought a house in the area where we currently live, and then I was promptly stationed about 3.5 hours away. I ended up renting an apartment down near the battalion I was stationed at, and I would work, I'd go to work at 5, 6 in the morning, and I'd stay till 8 or 9 o'clock at night because I had nothing else to do. The apartment that I rented was about 250 square feet, had no internet and no cable. So there wasn't much else to do but work. And when I would get home, what I would do is I'd kind of watch DVDs and I'd drink a bunch of beer and I'd fall asleep and do it all again the next day. And at some point I said, I got to think of something that's a little more constructive. So you guys are getting the full story. So you might need to edit some of this out.
The full story. You got it, man. No problem.
I figured digitally you guys can do what you want with it.
We can do it.
And so one night, half inebriated, I was watching Fight Club on DVD. And I said, that can't be how you make soap. And so, I walked the 2 miles to Walmart. Like I said, I was kind of drunk. I bought lard and drain cleaner, and that night I made soap. And
that's legitimately one of the greatest drunk stories I've heard. Drunk 2 a.m. lard.
Yeah. I woke up in the morning and I had all these small little dots of chemical burn on my forearm. I didn't realize that if you sprinkled some on you, it would just start burning you. And
so did it turn out that Brad Pitt was a liar, or was that really how you make soap?
Oh, that's legitimately how you make soap.
Okay.
I woke up, granted, when you make drain cleaner and lard soap, it's not good soap. And I didn't have access to anyone's liposuctioned fat, but I was fascinated by the process, and I said, wow, I can't believe that's really how you make soap. So during my lunch break the next day at work, I Googled soap making, and I didn't realize that there was this huge cottage industry of homemade soap. So that led me down a rabbit hole of about 4 to 6 months I got big into making soap. Not big as in like a big corporation, but like I went down that rabbit hole hard. I still have some here at the house that I made in 2006. We haven't gone through all that soap yet. And,
how drunk were you?
But what it did was it gave me something that, so I like to say that I'm both, an artist and a geek, in that, it's difficult to, or it takes a lot of study to make soap technically well, but it also takes some artistry to make interesting soap, not dissimilar to beer. But in my studies about soap, I found cheese making, which I went down the rabbit hole hard on, which led me to learning how to bake bread, which
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
Going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And then I found brewing later in 2006. And I don't want to say hooked because that has a really bad connotation, but I was fascinated. I was all in. I was enthralled. As much as I loved bread and soap and cheese, unless you did something wrong, none of it got you drunk. No.
Right. Yeah. That's the good kind.
But what I found fascinating is not only did it have the artistic and kind of the scientific components to it that really fascinated me. Beer has this really unique property that's communal and brings people together. When I was making soap and to a much lesser extent cheese and bread, I'd give it to guys at work, like, oh, I'll take this home for the wives or whatever, and and they'd make fun of me, and they're like, oh, that's really masculine.
So here's some soap.
And I'm like, well, when your wife's in the shower, she'll be thinking about me. No, it's
zing it.
There, take that.
When you're the soap maker, you got to think of something witty to say.
Right. Yeah.
All the guards are down. But what I loved was when I make a batch of beer, I can invite the guys that I worked with over to the apartment, and we'd sit around and we'd try some beer. And when the beer is free, you find that they're a bigger fan of it than they normally would be. But it tended to spark conversations, and we would talk about things and open up to each other in a way that we probably should have been paying someone to speak to about. But I sat there one night and we were just kind of having this big conversation about our role as soldiers and are we providing value to the world, because we were conducting 2 wars and et cetera. And it was really this interesting conversation. I said, wow, otherwise, without, the beer was kind of the catalyst to get us to open up and have this really kind of deep, meaningful talk. And that was kind of the dimension that everything else I was doing lacked. And so, kind of dropped all my other hobbies and started brewing really full time. Like any moment I wasn't at work, I was brewing or traveling and learning about beer. Got my best friend Matt into it. And so the weekends when I would come home, we'd spend the weekends brewing beer or again, traveling, learning about beer, trying different beer, consuming beer media. And then we deployed to Afghanistan in 2010, which was kind of the nexus of the brewery. Where we lived in Afghanistan was in the mountains in the east, in a small patrol base, no power, no running water. It was really very Spartan, but I was also the highest ranking guy for about 150 miles. So it was great because there was no one to tell me what to do. And so in between combat patrols and gunfights and getting attacked and, cleaning weapons and vehicle maintenance and doing all that stuff that you do in combat, there's actually a ridiculous amount of downtime. And so, you'd exercise, you read books. And one of the things that Matt and I did, mostly as a mental exercise, is we wrote a business plan in the back of one of my notebooks. And we didn't know for certain that we wanted to start a brewery. We just knew that when we were retired from the Army in a couple years, we wanted to own a business. We wanted to work together. We wanted to do something that was, that wasn't relegated to an office. We wanted to be doing something physically, but we also wanted something that would help bring our community together. And so before we even knew that we wanted to own a brewery, we knew that our mission statement, we wanted to be a responsible local business that helped improve not only our local economy, but the lives of the people in our community and our fellow veterans. We used brewing because it was fun to think about because you're not allowed to drink while you're deployed. So we thought a lot about beer. And since we had no access to the internet or other resources, we just kind of made stuff up. We made up numbers. We didn't know what we could sell beer for wholesale. We didn't know what we would buy ingredients for. I mean, we had a rough idea what we bought it from at the homebrew store and figured they were marking it up at least 30%.
Well, Steve, I'm sorry to cut you off here, but we do have to go to a break, and we'll pick this up in just a moment. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show, and we will be back right after this. Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Is your brewery or restaurant flooring all jacked up? Your foundation needs to be protected from heat, chemicals, and other contaminants. At the same time, you want to make sure it's slip resistant and you can clean up your messes with soap and water. You know who to call?
ResTech.
We've been manufacturing poured-in-place flooring since 2002, and we've got solutions to fit any facility's needs. Go on and visit our website at
ResTech.net.
That's RES-TEK.net. Drop us a line and we will come to you for a free evaluation.
Oh, yeah. Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Oh, God, here we go again. Dark alert.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, WVMT 96.3 FM and 620 AM in Burlington, Vermont. Catch Beer Guys Radio on WVMT every Saturday at 1 p.m. local time. Now let's get back to our talk with Steve Gagner.
Steve, we apologize. We had to stop you there due to a break, but we were getting the origin story of your brewery, and I don't think you were quite done telling us there, correct?
Yeah. So, we got to the point where we'd written this business plan in Afghanistan, and we came home. We're back to home brewing, and we're excited. We're talking about it. We're talking about what if, and we started researching real numbers and kind of updating the plan. And finally, our wife sat us down about 9 months later, and they said, "Hey guys, this sounds awesome, but do it or shut up, because we're done listening to you talk about it."
Yeah.
And so took a $10,000 loan out for my 401k, signed a lease, and had no idea what we were doing commercially brewing, but we really went for it. And our first month licensed was May of 2012. We made 60 gallons of beer that month, and then demand kind of took off. We're 7 years into it now. We make about 6,000 gallons a week, and we're distributed in 7 states in the United Kingdom.
That's pretty, even over in the UK, huh?
Yeah, that's
pretty
impressive.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I know, as you mentioned, a big part of your brewery is giving back and serving veterans. What are some of the ways that you serve the veteran community?
So in several ways. So some of our beers are geared towards raising money for veterans causes. For example, Recruit, which is our golden ale, it raises money for adaptive ski and sports. So those who paralyzed, lost limbs, etc., teaching them how to adapt and get back into doing normal athletic stuff, skiing, snowboarding, water sports, etc., which I think is very therapeutic. And then Follow Me, which is it's session IPA, that raises money for the Josh Pelota Fund. And Josh was an infantryman who deployed to Afghanistan with Matt and I, and a few years later lost his battle with PTSD and TBI and took his own life. And that really hits home with Matt and I. So his parents, his mom Val, started the foundation, and the whole point is to prevent veteran suicide and to ultimately build Josh's house, which is a place for veterans to get together, access some of those life-saving services and the outreach that they need, but really just have a place to bond and to realize that they have a support structure. And every year, our biggest fundraiser is the fundraiser to raise money for Josh's house. And we open up our brewery and the event space and the outdoor space, and it's completely packed. And it's really a great thing to be able to ensure that those veterans are getting the help that they need.
Steve, I know we've heard a lot about, supporting the veterans and that coming back. I think most people know about like the Wounded Warrior Project, but I've heard there's a lot of misconceptions with the needs of veterans and that. Are there any common misconceptions that you'd like to let people know about?
I think the common misconception is that all veterans have issues. It's certainly not the case. The other thing, those that are having issues, some have, adjustment difficulties because your life over there is so different, and the adjustment can certainly be difficult. I still have difficulty with it at times. But some of the veterans who are struggling, it doesn't make them dangerous people. We're not by and large a wholesale crazy lot, but it affects people in different ways, and what you're asked to do over there is not normal. I don't think many of us are wired in that way, and so it does take a very thoughtful and kind of proactive readjustment. Some do better with the reintegration than others. So not everyone has issues, and those who do have issues, we're not crazy. We just need some help sometimes.
Absolutely. What is the best way for, the average person to help to support our
Talk to them and genuinely listen. Understand that if you haven't done those things, then you probably won't understand their point of view in a lot of instances, and that's okay. You don't have to understand what they're going through, nor do I think you really can in a lot of situations, and that's okay. You don't necessarily have to, and you certainly don't need to discount what they're telling you, because whether we like it or not, it's like dealing with a child. When a baby's crying, you're like, well, you're fed and you're dry. There's no reason for you to cry. Well, to the baby, there's a reason. And I'm not trying to, make the analogy that we're a bunch of babies, but
sure,
talk to the veterans, listen to them, and if they're having problems, understand that they're having a problem, and that's okay. Oftentimes, what we really need to hear is just that someone cares and someone's in our corner. That means more than you could know.
That really makes sense. Switching gears here, I have to know, what is the meaning behind the name 14 Star Brewing? I mean, where does that come from?
I think I've got to guess.
Is that a reference to the military, or is that something else?
That's a fantastic question, but I heard there might be some theories. I'll let you guys guess first.
I think, wasn't Vermont the 14th?
Yes, colony? Sir. It was the first state after the original 13. And it was
that's right.
It became a state 1791. What was interesting, it became a state really to settle a land dispute between New York and New Hampshire. Congress at the time really didn't care about Vermont as a state, and so it wasn't given its own star on the flag. And Vermonters, being a kind of proud lot, were like, "Hey, where's our star?" They're like, simmer down." And they're like, "No, there's."
Simmer down.
There's a star for every colony. Why not for us? And so Vermonters would sew a large star to the center of the Betsy Ross 13-star flag. So as you can see in our logo, there's a large star surrounded by the other 13. And those were flown from 1791 to 1795 when Kentucky became the 15th state. And we went from a 13-star flag to a 15-star flag. But there was never actually a 14th star flag. It's a reference to our state. And to the kind of the quality that Vermont is known for, but it also, is a reference to our fierce independence and our unwillingness to let others discount who we are just because we're a small state.
There for a while, I guess flag makers had to be like, "Come on, we got the 13 pattern. It looks nice. Throw the 14th one. Now we got 15 stars.
It's flag makers were loving it. It's
every Capitol building.
Yeah, Capitol.
Yeah,
I guess so, right?
I think that's the only time in our nation's history where we've had fast fashion in the flag industry, and they're just like, yeah, keep pumping out the states, homie. I got version 49
that's a good
coming.
Point. Keep adding those stars. It's been a while. I don't remember what was it?
The latest fashion in flags. Yes, that's fantastic. I was thinking it would be more likely the official buildings, the Capitol buildings. It's like, oh, we've got to get a new flag. We just got this flag. It just arrived. We just have to
got all your posters and your paintings up, your murals. It's a lot of work.
You got to go repaint all
those. But like Steve said, though, that kept a lot of people busy.
Well, I'll tell you, in the Army, we have our chain of command walls that shows the pictures. So I'm a battalion commander in the Army, and so I have my photo on the wall, and the brigade commander, the division commander, all the way up to the President Trump. What keeps us busy is he keeps, let's just say his staff keeps switching. People keep getting hired and fired and promoted and demoted in the civilian leadership. And so we have to keep changing out the photos on this photo lineup of leaders. That's how we keep ourselves busy these days.
Keep busy.
Yeah.
New pictures. Well, we need to take another break. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We'll be back very soon to talk more with 14th Star Brewing.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Well, I'm sure I'd feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons can get some cool perks like Beer Guys swag, commercial-free episodes, and even bonus episodes that aren't available anywhere else. And we just recorded a few more of those.
We did.
Yes,
this week, Brian, we have we did the Bell's Double Two Hearted.
Oh, yeah.
We sampled that. So that's out there right now.
Oh, exciting.
At this very moment.
I can't hardly wait to hear it. Now back to our conversation with Steve Gagner.
Steve, real quick, I'll move on from this quick, but I had to throw this out there to you. You mentioned your drunken foray into soap making. Now, I will say that I was sober when I did that, but for a few years, my ex-wife and I owned a candle making business.
Yeah.
She did some soaps as well, but we were mostly candles, and we actually grew it up to where kind of an unintentional niche that we landed in. Someone saw our candles and wanted to sell them as a fundraising item. And we ended up falling into some referral network there. So for about 2 years, we had schools, daycares, and churches coming to us to do fundraisers. So they would pre-sell all of our candles for us and then order hey, we sold 300 candles. So
yeah.
And we quit because my wife got sick of making candles, so many stinking candles. So, but I didn't let anybody get at me, man. It was they were masculine candles, just like yourself.
Yeah.
That's right. Burberry and bourbon and cedar and all those great
gasoline,
right? Yeah. Oil slicks, yeah, hair gel,
yeah. There are mandals out there. They call them that have supposed to be manly.
Hang on, I think I'm wearing mandals.
You are wearing mandals.
Wait, that's a different thing.
Yeah. Well, Steve, we want to talk a little more about your brewery and your beers and that there. So we talked some about that. I was going to ask. You mentioned cheese making as well. So do you still make cheese? Have you brought your love of beer and cheese together?
No, not really. It's a time-intensive activity that I really don't have the luxury of right now. Like I said, in addition to the brewery, my real day-to-day job, the thing that actually pays the bills, is I'm an Army officer. I don't get a lot of time to do a whole lot of stuff outside of it.
Yeah. Between being an officer running the brewery, there's no time to
seriously
to make the cheese. Understandable.
Right.
I heard you make a reference to a Vermont style IPA or double IPA. What is that? Is that different than New England IPA, or is that the same thing? Or
so I will tell you that New England IPA is the word that non-Vermont breweries give to a Vermont IPA. Understand the origins of what you would consider a New England IPA. Well, you're looking back at the first, what one would consider a New England IPA, and you're talking about beers like Heady Topper,
sure,
and other assorted pub IPAs by The Alchemist when they still had the restaurant. And then, you have Sean Hill at Hill Farmstead creating some amazing stuff. Also hazy well before its time. And that really boils down to the yeast that they were using, which was Conan. And that was developed at Vermont Pub and Brewery by Greg Noonan, who was a craft beer pioneer. And so Greg he developed Conan, was using it at VPB. And when John left to go start The Alchemist, he took the house yeast with him, used it in a much different way than VPB was using it, and, created, arguably the world's greatest beer. And so in Vermont, we had these crazy, hazy, delicious hot bomb IPAs, partly due to the yeast and partly due to some other stuff these pioneering brewers well before us were doing. And so for us, it was just an IPA. When people would come to Vermont and they were like, wow, this is different. Took those techniques and those ingredients and brought them to other places. And they couldn't call it a Vermont IPA because they weren't in Vermont. And so New England IPA was kind of the thing that people started calling it. And that's what ended up becoming approved by the BJCP. So to us, it's a Vermont IPA.
I had no idea, but I'm curious about one thing. Having read a little bit recently about raw ales, I'm curious if all of the haziness, does that all come from Conan, or do you experiment with boil times and possibly do things to allow more proteins to exist in the beer, unlike what a lot of people do with their boil times?
With us, we experiment with boil times for various reasons, none of which is to impart haze. The haze in our beer is either less flocculent yeast or hop resins. Just not something that we've ever really felt like getting into. There's, when we started brewing, there was a thing called turbidity, which used to be a measure of how clear your beer is, and it used to be a sign of a poorly brewed beer. But I mean, you had a beer like Heady Topper, and you can't say that beer was poorly brewed. And turbidity has really fallen off as a metric that people have used to grade beers, because evidently a lot of craft beer drinkers want the haziest, kind of gnarliest beer they can get their hands on nowadays, and that's interesting.
I made a meme not long ago because I am a spicy meme lord, Steve. And but anyhow, it just said hazy is not a flavor. And I hear so many people that it's like, what's your favorite beer? Oh, I love the taste of hazies. And I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't a flavor. You can't love the taste.
Right.
Non-flocculent
of
yeast.
A hazy.
They enjoy non-flocculent yeast.
Yeah, but the thing is, it has become a descriptor that people think that's all they search for in the beer. Yeah. Nothing else matters as much as saying I like hazies. And kind of what you addressed, Steve, is what I thought about it. There's a lot of breweries out there that are not in Vermont or New England that are brewing beers, and they are trying their best to get as much haze as possible.
Yeah.
But, for the origins of these beers, it was more just something that happened in the process of brewing the beers the way you did.
Right.
And that's, we talked a couple of years ago to Kimmick, and he mentioned, people talk about hazies, and you compare it to what is hazy now.
Oh, nothing.
Heady Topper is not that hazy.
It's not.
We talked to Lawson's a couple of weeks ago, Sean Lawson, and it's kind of the same thing, Sip of Sunshine. And that people talking about these beers being hazy, and they're not really that hazy compared to these milkshake opaque beers that are being made now.
Well, and nothing against the beers that are being made now, but you have a a sip or a heady and you're like, you're right, it's not the hoppiest thing out there anymore. It's certainly not the haziest thing out there anymore, but those are good freaking beers, you know? And
right, sure, absolutely.
and it's crazy. We have people come into the brewery and they say, you know, hey, what would you like? What's the hoppiest thing you have? Do you mean bitter as in IPUs? Do you mean that floral citrus resin aroma and flavor? Like what? Because it's all hoppy. It's just different versions of, and they're like, well, I only like hoppy beers. Do you like bitter beer? Like we have, you know, we have very, very hop forward beers that are very low bittering because it's the way that we produce them. And we have lower hop perception or hop flavor beers that are very bitter. But, you know, I think it comes down to, you know, the consumers telling us what it is they enjoy about the beers that helps us give them the right beer for them.
Dial it in there. Right. Hoppy and hazy. Right. That's it. I don't like dark beers. I'm looking for something light.
Yeah.
All the descriptors there. So Steve, what is next for 14th Star Brewing?
It is an evolving industry. And the market continues to become more saturated. Really, in terms of innovation, what we're looking to do is, you know, continue to develop great beers. And what used to work in terms of putting out a flagship beer and marketing it doesn't work so well anymore because people want to try what's new and what's hot. So we're taking the lessons learned from dialing in these great beers and in addition to the staples that people can find and enjoy because they know they're going to be good, putting out limited releases, which is kind of the way to survive the industry right now. And we're looking at alternative models of delivering beer, of ownership in the business that will allow our employees to benefit from our future growth. And we're also looking at a model to become the hometown beer of the American servicemen all over the country, which is an interesting kind of distribution model because we can't brew it in Vermont and send it to Fort Hood, Texas, and expect it to be as good as it was when it left the brewery. So a lot of logistical challenges, but we're pretty excited about it.
Some big plans there. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Coming up next week, we will be talking with Bend, Oregon's Deschutes Brewing. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.